Hello, hello, Assalamualaikum. Today I'm going to talk about a research question. So let's get on with this presentation. All right. So everybody is okay. All right. So what is the primacy of the research question? Okay. Research question is important. All right. It is important in your research proposal. It is important in your manuscript. And a good research paper addresses a specific research question, usually, alright? One specific research question. And the research question, or the study objective, or the main research hypothesis that we are going to cover, all of these are central organizing principle of the paper. But again, it is not just for the paper, it's also for the proposal, okay? So whatever relates to the research questions belongs in the paper and the rest does not, alright? So you have to be very specific. What is or what are the research question or research questions that you want to put forward in your proposal or in your manuscript or in your writing? Generally, there is only one main research question should be addressed in a paper. Secondary but related questions are also allowed, alright? But usually we have only one research question for a paper, okay? But you may have other related questions, okay? They are allowed. But for a proposal, you should have more than one research questions, okay? So because a proposal itself is a big project, and from there you can publish 2 or 3 or 4 articles. So in your research proposal you should have more than one research questions. So because at the end you have to do research, right? Research project, you have to perform some analysis, and at the end you should be publishing or writing your manuscript. So the project itself allows you to explore several distinct research questions, and because your project has more than one research questions, you can write more than one paper. For example, you have 3 research questions in your proposal, you do research, and at the end you can write at least 3 research papers. So again, if you are familiar with a research paper, the basic structure of a typical research paper is the consequence of introduction, methods, results, and discussion. So we call this as IMRAD, okay? Introduction, methods, result, and discussion. So these 4 headings are necessary in typical medical or health paper, and each section addresses a different objective, right? So in the paper the author state the problem they intend to address. This is for the introduction, okay? In the introductions of a paper, the author will describe what are the problems, okay? And they will ask what is the research question, and this is written in the introduction section, okay? and what they did to answer the question is in the method section, and what they observed during the experiment in the results section, and what they think the results mean in the discussion. Right? This is the arrangement of a typical research paper. So in the introduction, the author explain the rationale, what motivate the authors to do the research at the first place, and the background of the study, a brief introduction or a brief background of the study, some information about the topic, the theme of the study, why it is important, and all this should be brief. And then what is the research question, and why is it important to ask this research question? This also written in the introduction. In the introduction, you also review some literature. It is necessary to review adequate number of literature, but it is rarely that you do a full-blown review of the literature, because that is going to be a lot of work. Okay, so, and the research question should always be spelled out and not merely left for the reader to guess. You should write a research question inside the introduction sections of your paper. Right? It should be clear. How do we develop this research question? Most research originates from a problem. Okay, you know that there is a problem, and you said to yourself, okay, I want to study this problem, right? So that motivates you to do the research. Or you have a question identified from a literature or arising out from your experience with regards to some general problem. Okay, so this problem, these questions, these issues motivates you to do a research, and with that you have these questions. What do the question, I mean, you ask yourself about these issues, about this problem, about this experience or whatever. Okay, so you have that questions, and because of that questions you plan to do a research, a proposal. All right, and then you collect data, and then you analyze your data to answer these questions. So again, you have this research question, right? For example, you want to know what is the level of stress among Malaysians. Okay, what are the level of stress and depression among Malaysians, for example, right? So you don't know, but you are interested to know this, all right? So the next step you do is you review the literature, right? So you go to the website, whatever website, you go to Google, or you go to databases, PubMed, Google Scholar, ProQuest, or whatever services that that will provide you information about the current literature, or the literature that they are keeping in the database. All right, so you go there and you find suitable reading materials, quote-unquote literature, and this is the first essential stage in developing the research question, that is to review the literature. Alright, so you have one basic research question, but to phrase better your research question, you should go and read some more literatures related to the topic of interest. There might be two questions that you need to be answered, that you need to answer to refine the research questions. Number one, what kind of information you need to collect to answer the research question? Right? What are the informations you need to gather, you need to collect, you need to ask, you need to experiment? Second, you need to ask yourself, how is this information collected? In doing so, you need to think of the design of the study, the design of the research, which is the best study design, which is the best research design, what is the right methodology to fit the type of questions that you have selected. Types of research questions. Why the question is being asked? You need to ask yourself why you ask the question. And the type of information to be collected to answer it determines the type of research design to be used. So they are all interconnected, right? But you start off with research question, you do some literature to make a much stronger research questions, and then you think what is the type of information you need to collect, how to collect the information, and that will determine the type of research design or study design that you are going to use. So the research question might be a descriptive research question, okay, and in fact there is a study that is called as a descriptive study. The purpose of this kind of study is to describe what is going on or what exists, okay, just to describe, to tell us information, to tell us about the scenario, the problems, the issue. But there is also a relational study, okay. Relational study is a study where you look at the relationship, the association between two or more variables. You want to see how are they interconnected, how are they related, how are they associated, which affects which cause which, right? For example, the proportion of men and women with negative attitudes on the level of service provisions, or the proportion of women with eating disorders compared to men. So that, you know, you see some in this example, you are interested to look at the association between sex and service provisions and sex with eating disorder. You want to relate things, all right? There is also a causal study design, which actually performed to examine whether one or more variables or factors significantly causes or affects one or more outcome. For example, does an intervention program improve patients' self-reported well-being? Will diet A improve blood cholesterol level? Will stress score affect the happiness index, for example? All right, so this is causal causal study design. So you have research questions, you need to operationalize it, all right? And because now we know that the type of information obtained from the study is dependent on the question or question asked, and you know that the type of questions asked has an important bearing on whether the research methodology chosen is qualitative or quantitative. What we mean by qualitative and quantitative is that there are two different study designs here, right? So there is one known as quantitative, which basically deals with number. Okay, you go and you collect data, you ask the participant to take the response, you measure the height, you measure the weight, you measure how much calorie they take, and you record the information in your data. So that kind of study are the quantitative study. Qualitative study, on the other hand, is you go and meet people, not many, maybe 5, 6 or 10 people. You sit down with them, you talk with them, you do focus group discussion, you do interview, you you try to understand the participants, their opinion, their reactions, their belief, and whatnot. But you don't quote as like 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or 5. You don't measure like the weight, the height. So that is a qualitative study. So how will you operationalize research questions? Okay. So again, first you must identify the concepts in your research question, and then you need to convert these concepts into operational definitions. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? Okay. What you want to measure? Which one you to measure? How will you measure? All right. And then, so all these things you need to provide the operational definitions, and then you need to express them as measurable indicators or just simply variables. Okay. So back to this research question, the simple strategy to operationalize a research question is, number one, to formulate a research question. You should be able to formulate your research question. You have to ask yourself, what do I want to know from the research? All right. And then you need to identify the concept or main ideas in the research questions. Okay. So you might have concept 1, concept 2, and so on and so forth. At the end of the lecture, I will give you a few papers to read, and basically most of the contents of this PowerPoint come from that resource. All right. So you formulate the research question, you identify the concepts or main ideas in the research questions, and then you go and review the literature. Search and list operational terms for all the concepts in your research. Okay. And then you go and identify and list measurable indicators or variables for each concept, and then you rewrite the research questions using the operational form. So this is one resource that is very, very useful. In fact, most of the contents of this PowerPoint come from this this resource by Keith A Meadows. The title is So You Want to Do Research, Developing Research Question. And you can also read this paper which was published in International Journal for Quality of Healthcare. All right, so this basically this so you want to do research is published in this article, and so it is a very good article. Do read it, and if you have any questions, do email me, and thank you and bye bye.